call the North Plains Planning Commission meeting for November to order at 7 o'clock. Could we please, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty, and justice for all.
Chair King,
Here.
Commissioner Houth,
Here.
Commissioner Canodell,
Here.
Van Domlin,
Here.
Commissioner Nuttenkamp,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Levante is excused tonight, and your ex officio this evening is Counselor Butch Kendall.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 5 is public comment. This time is for anyone on the Zoom or in the audience for any comments to the Planning Commission, anything of Planning Commission business that's not on the agenda. Seeing none from the audience.
Chairs are this way, you know.
Chair.
Oh, the
man.
chairs behind you.
Well, they could have been standing. No one on the Zoom? Okay, thank you. Item number 6 is approval of the Planning Commission minutes for October the 12th. Are there any changes? Subtractions?
I move to approve the minutes of October 12th, 2022.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Nunnekamp and seconded by Commissioner Hought for approval of the October 12th minutes as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Or approved? Item number 7 is new business. We have no applications, is that correct? And it's in package. This is just an identification announcements for those two that are terms are up.
Correct.
So, and those terms are Commissioner House and Commissioner Lamonte's.
And I did receive an application tonight from Commissioner Houth. He would like to reply if there's consensus.
Is there any money with it?
There was not any cash with it. That doesn't mean he can't slip me some in the parking lot of it.
Being reported.
Yes.
In that case, I don't want
Uh,
it. All right, so if we had nothing else with that, then we go to item C, which is the 2023 work plan discussion. Staff on that?
Really, it's a good evening, Steve Miller, planning manager. We have set this aside for you folks as a opportunity to discuss items that you would like to try to address on your efforts next year. So we, obviously the UGB is a large one. And these other items would be ones that we want to fit in among the UGB work that you would like to accomplish, and also among any applications that come in. So knowing that, there will be some other items that might, get in the way of some of these efforts, we still want to try and, address the ones that you would like to talk about in 2023. But really, it's an opportunity for you folks to kind of debate and throw stuff out there. We'll write them down, and maybe we can start, finding out what the top 4 or so are, and then maybe, kind of address them a little bit more in detail in December to analyze a work plan.
Well, as you mentioned, the UGB expansion is number 1 on our plate, because with that, we need zoning code, because we hopefully will not be using the NC zone in the expansion. So we need to have that in place. I think the other to go along with that, of course, would be the code amendments and then concept plans for the expansion areas. And I guess as the urban growth boundary committee hasn't really identified properties yet in their process, so,
We will by the end of the year, though.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
Or
I mean,
they will.
obviously, once those areas are identified and approved, then we would want to see concept maps on how they develop.
Yes.
And then, of course, along with that, would be then zoning map amendments.
Yes. So that kind of all plays into the UGB, absolutely, all those different items. And, you know, maybe one of the first ones is looking at the zoning map, you know, trying to see if there's anything that needs to be addressed in terms of, do we have the right zoning in the right places, or some properties that might need to be rezoned as in an effort to bring in the right lands for the UGB in the right place, in the right places. So I think that's a real important step.
I would definitely like to do city policies, but I think that's out of our jurisdiction.
City policies,
Yeah.
just kind of review what we have right now, or
Well,
think of some
I
new
don't
ones.
think the planning commission has city policies. Planning commission doesn't have city policy.
I'm just trying to understand what you would like me to write down, so we.
It's on your list here, that's.
Just city policy?
That's what you have here, city policies. And
Oh, I see what you're
we
looking
aren't
at. I'm
involved
sorry,
in
yeah.
city policies. I'd like to be involved in, but right now,
Give us some examples in the nexus of planning and we'll decide.
for city policies.
Yeah.
planning.
Yeah. I mean, because that could be broad. We have financial policies, we have all sorts of policies. Like, for instance, when it comes to a development agreement or things like that, that's driven by a policy, but there definitely are planning considerations to get into account there. So I don't know. I mean,
Or
it's
maybe
a
there's
broad
something that we'd
discussion.
like to see brought by the planning commission that maybe isn't right now, or something like that.
Well,
It's a free, I mean, it's kind of a free discussion. Yeah, that's fine.
speaking of that, I mean, we used to do development agreements all the time. Now we don't seem to do development agreements very often. So because there was kind of a change, I guess, in how that was handled.
Yeah, and the interpretation I got from the attorney was they're not always necessary if there's conditions of approval and it's a straight development that all they're gonna do, you know, if it's a simple one, small subdivision, partition, whatever, no need to do a development agreement, they just follow the conditions of approval. When you get into some of the negotiations with system development charges, and credits and extra working on those things, then you want to outline those details. That makes sense, but that was the.
Which is common, it's typically the larger commercial projects or your larger subdivisions where you get into the agreements, your smaller, 10-lot subdivision or something like that. Typically, the conditions of approval will carry the day to make sure we are covered.
Well, I mean, at one time, since I have some history, we did development agreements almost on everything. Because if you go, I'm sure Commissioner Cunderdale can attest to that, that if you go through different properties that they sell and they get the title insurance policies, then they come up with these old development agreements that are on single lots and stuff like that, not on.
But is that a good thing?
Yeah, probably is a good thing, yes.
Okay, well, I remember you
They
had
run with
a,
the land.
you had a property, you wanted me to look it up, I had about 12 development agreements through, and that was a lot of work and unraveling that really a lot of it seemed unnecessary. So I think it's a case by case.
Or they expire, and yeah, but because the city didn't do anything, I mean, they had them, they were based on improvements.
Were they
that are-
enforced? Yeah.
And so they either were not enforced, weren't done and weren't enforced, or they, they were completed and they should have been removed, but yet they were still on title policy
Right. And
because they were under the land.
yeah, so it's gonna show up with the title search
Right.
forever, because I don't know how a development agreement falls off.
Only if it has an expiration date or something.
On that project we worked on, we did get rid of
Yeah.
some, so.
Okay.
I mean, there are some development agreements that actually do have expiration dates written into them, kind of saying if something doesn't happen by a certain time, then it's just not gonna happen. Sometimes, like the recession happens and some developments don't get completed. So, there would be a drop dead date on some of them.
Well, and some of them that I run into is that basically you had a certain period of time to complete the improvements, and if not, then the city has the right to do it and charge you, but then if the city doesn't follow through on it, you know, it's like, what do you do now? You know?
Maybe a timeline needs to be put on the city at the same time, and if you don't do something by a certain time, then it just falls away. So
Well,
also,
I mean, you tell them they have to do something, and they don't do it, there's gotta be some enforcement somehow. Or else what's the purpose of doing it?
I mean, in most cases, I'm just thinking, you know, my time at Bend, you know, there- in 2008, there was a tremendous amount of subdivisions that were either approved or halfway into construction or done. A lot of times, you know, those projects that didn't get started, that had development agreements or had, you know, decisions on there, they expired. And people came back and reapplied for a new subdivision or a new project on that property. And then that moved it forward. And so there's a lot of different ways to accomplish that. And sometimes it is a development agreement, sometimes it is just letting the market kind of run its course and let decisions expire. And then people have to come back in and start over again. So, but yeah, there's a lot of different ways to handle that. But typically, if you have a hot market, developers love to get their projects done as soon as they can. You know, they're usually on the hook with the bank for payments and whatnot. And so they are trying to get these things done as quick as possible, get homes or the buildings built as quick as possible so they can get out of that situation, as you well know. But I think, you know, it's the slow market that puts us in a situation where things might not get completed.
I have a comment on code adjustments or amendments. So we have our code out there, and the builder is always designed to what the bare minimum of the code is. And sometimes that's really frustrating when they're always designed towards the bare minimum. And then on top of that, they want adjustments and stuff to that or amendments to it. And I don't know how to rise above that, the minimum. I don't have any ideas or anything, but sometimes it's really frustrating.
Well, I think you should raise that to your minimum standards.
Raise the minimum standards.
You know, what do we have? Is there a standard there that might need to be considered, you know, for a different level? So if it's a 5-foot setback, should it be 7.5 feet? If the street width is 50 feet, should it be 60 feet of right of way? If the sidewalks are 5, should it be 6? You know, those type of things, you know, that's how you would get it into the code.
Right.
So you have a minimum. And I agree that generally they will go to the minimum standards.
Yes.
Unless it's a big developer that's trying to do something unique, kind of like Lennar is doing out in Brand Hill. You don't get other developments very often because not many places have large lots, you know, like that to do something like that. But that's, I would say that's a pretty unique development, especially for this area. Just some good many projects that big with that diversity of housing types and streets, connections.
There's one just down the street here.
There's a couple, but that's the future of what we're looking at GB too. And I think there's been some discussion there about how do you concept plan or plan out phases.
Right.
And that's going to be tough because that's really ratcheting the market. And like we're really inserting ourselves when a home builder, you know, well, I came in and I could buy 200 acres to build on easily, but we're saying no, we want 10 acres at a time. That's going to be a tricky discussion, not insurmountable, but we'll need some examples.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, it's something to think about from the planning commission that there's things that we hadn't liked of it seen or maybe adjustments that builders came back in with that we really didn't want to see. So maybe we need to raise some of those standards as well.
One of the things that, if I'm correct in my thinking, is that there used to be variances were only for width, depth, and the square footage of lots. They didn't have variance for setbacks and variance for this and variance for that, you know.
That's true.
And so, you know, you knew you could only get this much variance.
Right.
And now all of a sudden it seems like you can get a variance on everything. You know? And I mean, it maybe get to the point where some things you can't variance. You know?
I will say, I was surprised to see lot sizes as a variance option. A lot of jurisdictions don't variance their lot sizes. They variance lot widths, or they variance lot depth, or they might variance a setback. But it's rare that you see them variance a lot size in the zoning district, because the zoning district is trying to establish those lot sizes, right?
Right.
So that's I think we have it where you can actually variance our lot sizes.
Yeah.
Here. So,
I don't know where this fits in, but we had some discussion several sessions ago regarding relooking at signage
signage.
code. And
Oh, that's one of Stuart's favorite things. He loves sign code.
So does
we had said that it currently is a specific amount, regardless of how large the development is. We said maybe there's an opportunity to think about it from a proportional perspective. But I think we had said we would defer that to 2023. So I don't know if that fits on the list of things to.
Well, I think
Let's go to this.
code updates are always on the list, and, you know, every time you have a code, somebody's gonna try to find ways around the code, you know, so it's, and they always need fine tuning, so it's, I think any of them are open to review. And maybe that's the thing you do, is every once in a while, just say, let's grab a couple and review them, you know, are they where we want it to be?
Well, the sign is a good one to consider, because there probably is a sign variance that's going to be coming your way next year. We anticipate, we haven't seen it yet, but we anticipate that will come your way. They've been talking to us, it's the Taco Bell and Roll Tide. Oh my God. You know, they're trying to get a monument sign.
Not 75-foot sign.
It's going to be substantially more than what the code allows right now. And so maybe that is something to consider. Is the code right now, the way it's written for monument signs, is it too small? Are they asking for too much? Should we look at that? So I think sign codes are always something that should get looked at, because you know, things change in that world, signs change. We have signs like billboards that roll, you know, and you have the video billboards and stuff. And so it's always something I think that's worth looking at. And as we get more commercial development, like the GOA property and now the Roll Tide property, there's going to be some new signs coming into town.
Is that possibly something we should consider in a work session, and then invite them? And invite maybe the people that are in charge of Roll Tide and say, you know, what do you see? And so that we could at least have some examples so that we can compare it to our codes.
That's a
I
good
mean,
question.
before they come in with an application, obviously. but-
Yeah, I mean, they have, I know they've done a neighborhood meeting, which is odd for a sign, but because it's a variance request, it falls into the type 3 classification that requires a neighborhood meeting. I think one person attended, which was the person who lives behind Roll Tide.
He would come in.
And so I don't think he would have a problem coming in and chatting with you about his sign or signs in general in commercial zones. Right now, I think he has a particular problem with where to put that sign on the property. And, you know, meet his needs, meet his objectives, and make sure it's out of our clear vision area. He's a little stuck with that right now. You know, they want to try and get it where, you know, you'll see it before you have to make the turn to Pacific, so you get into the driveway. So putting it by subway kind of isn't really where they want it. But that might be where it ends up. Yeah. So for example, in that zone right now, the maximum square footage for a monument sign is 32 square feet per sign. Their sign is 70 plus, 70 to 80 square feet. So, you know, is that too much? Is 32 too little? You know, maybe those could be things that we could chat about next year, you know, as a, you know, let's go through the sign code and take a deep dive into that and see what it looks like. No, you don't have time for that.
Well, every 2 years, I think. we do that.
Well, I mean, you know, it'd be nice to, you know, obviously we get a little heads up on that something's coming, you know, and then all of a sudden, it's like, everybody's got to go back and look at the code. They get, what I really don't like is having things I just-
Not even an application.
That's
That's
what
on
it
Facebook talking about it.
Well, that's why I'm saying is,
Yeah.
you know, hey, maybe, if we don't even have a workshop, maybe have them come and do a presentation.
Yeah, I think-
in the, you know, the minutes before.
He'd be willing to do that, and I think he would benefit from that too.
Yeah, don't take it, I'm not saying it's wrong or right, I'm just saying, you know, if there's an example, you know, something that's
Well-
coming right now on the sign, with the sign code.
I mean, I think what Commissioner Miller is bringing up is probably related to East Fowler too, where we have really good building in our code, made it kind of a postage stamp, and just because of where that thing is located off of an arterial, you can't see it, so yeah, there's my.
Anyone else? Pet peeves? Too bad Heather's not here.
Right. She would have something.
She's
for
got
us.
them all.
Yeah.
But we can further this discussion into December.
One thing we've been talking about as we're looking at this, kind of the future of downtown planning is the zoning of downtown.
Yes.
It's very much a patchwork. And do we want to make that more consistent? You know, because if anything that's zoned, there could be one small lot, so residential in the future, it's gonna have to rezone, it's gonna have to, if you get demoed, set fire, whatever, in between two commercial spaces, but if it develops as residential, do we want to clear that up and make it more consistent and just make it all commercial? Because you can still make it all commercial and a government building would still be allowed in there as an allowed use, so. It's just,
The downtown area is all C1. There is no residential.
Yeah. Well,
There's residents in it, but no residential zone.
You're talking about from Commercial Street all the way down, but we're
Well, the downtown. is
Lingo
only
down,
Main
sorry.
to-
Well-
to 314.
from Maine to Lebanon.
well, part of that will really be determining what do we consider downtown. Is it 2 blocks or is it more than that? You know, so that's part of that discussion. Just-
Well, and also, I mean, does it go across Caper? You know, into
How deep is it?
Yeah.
Right,
Because right now,
Exactly.
you know it can't go to the north because of the railroad tracks. So
Right.
the obvious next move would be south, but, you know, does that change the configuration? Obviously, if you have one ways. Get people to go that way.
I can, I mean, we'll get to it. I mean,
With the city history, and Bush knows too, the residential on Commercial Street is flip-flop, I don't know how many different times.
Yeah.
And
yeah, there's a couple spot zones there, and, you know, just between here, this, I can't remember what street this is right here, 311, 311, and 3, and Main. There's a couple that are little spot zone, that could be C1, for example. And, you know, when you change zoning like that, so say there's an auto shop or something like that there right now in a C2 or M1 zone that we have along commercial. And we change it to C1 to be all along commercial at C1. That doesn't mean that the auto shop is now in violation and can't operate any longer. It just means that it's a legal non-conforming use, meaning that it was established lawfully. We changed the zoning, you're still allowed to operate, but the only thing it would preclude them from doing is expanding that use and making it bigger. And so as long as they continue to operate and they don't move their footprint, we wouldn't say a word. But then what it would do is if they sold the property or a new person were to buy it, then it would allow for redevelopment under the C1 zone, which would hopefully be more in line with the vision that you have for the downtown. Same with like the post office property, it's zoned specifically for government type uses, but in the C1 zone, government buildings are allowed.
and it's just a lease. That lease could run out as a post office.
What's the zone there?
It's like,
Oh, it's been changed.
So if you change that to C1, you know, one, the government building is allowed.
That's what it was
still.
before it became
So
IPU. So.
right, little things like that, like that yellow house that the city owns, is basically gonna fall in on itself. That should be
one.
That's
It is
C1.
C1.
Oh, it's IP.
That's IP.
Oh, because the city owns it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you were
I
the
mean-
guys that screwed that all, then, because it was C1.
I probably wasn't even born yet when that happened.
I have a question about zoning.
But just,
also then.
you know, like, some consistency,
Yeah.
you know, those are things we can look at.
IPU is something you just move in and out when it's,
Yeah.
when it's when it's used a certain way. I mean, that's not even really a zone.
Yeah.
I know you call it a zone, but
I
if
mean, it
somebody
is,
has a
yeah.
residence and they turn it into a church, it's IPU.
It basically just means it's non-taxed.
Yeah.
To our
Can I make a comment about, so there's a lot or a couple lots off of 311th that's been a church for a long time, but I don't think it's been used as a church for maybe decades even.
Yeah.
What happens with something like that? How can we remedy that? Start my own church? like I said. I didn't know how we pursued something.
I don't know either, but if it's not, if it's operating as a tax exempt property and it's not providing that service, that seems like it's something.
In violation, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that might be the county assessor who has to kind of verify that.
and they do on an annual basis, because we get those letters, so I don't know,
Right.
someone's attesting to it somehow, so let's follow up with EMT on that.
Thank
Too bad doesn't-
Yeah. Let me know, actually.
Anything else?
So I think, just kind of some ideas that, some of them were on our sheet, and I know you went through that, but I think obviously the UGB is going to be something that, it's just going to start coming, as we get ready to go now that the EOA has been adopted.
Not yet.
Not yet, but at least it's made it through the first reading. We anticipate it'll make it to the second reading, so it's unanimous. And we do anticipate right now, based on the Friday conversation with PLCD, that they're going to appeal it. That looks like it has a good chance of, upholding and staying, in effect this time. So with that in mind, I think we're going to start, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but probably start moving forward now with getting some stuff put together for that.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of wanted to hold off on the next PAC meeting to see if this EOA was going to survive the scrutiny. It looks like it's going to, so we talked
Just
just
a huge
today.
difference, yeah.
Yeah, all right, getting that next meeting in the books. We're gonna shoot for probably December.
Well, it's from a planning commission standpoint, need to be ahead. What's happening,
Yeah,
especially in the UGB.
yeah, and I mean, we were just looking through the NC code again today, and looking at commercial spaces. And one of the use, I can't remember what it was, but allowable commercial uses, it just says neighborhood commercial use.
That's because
And I was
NC code was just supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't supposed.
Well,
to
it will be
do
used
anything.
again. We know that, so, yeah. it's definitely-
That's why maybe what we want to look at is rezoning some of the NC. So,
Yeah, as far as the NC zone goes, after looking at it for a while and seeing the type of developments that have come into that zone, it kind of functions as a PUD type of zoning.
Yeah.
Which is an important aspect of a zoning code, I think. For example, when I was at Mario, we did some PUDs over in Sherwood for a developer, and there was no other developments around the PUD. So some of the things he asked for, because we had to do 10,000 square foot lots, and because of the, some of the properties were configured a little odd, we had to get some setback variances as part of that PUD, but we were asking for that with the trade-off being, well, we're going to give you that 15% of open space, right? So we got a little bit and then they got a little bit. That's kind of how you do that process. There's a little give and take in there. So you can get some amenities like the open space, and then the developer can get a little flexibility in the design, maybe some of the street flex or something like that. So if you want to do away with the NC zone, I would still encourage you to make sure that you had a PUD chapter that probably applied to most of your residential zones. So you don't get just cookie cutter subdivisions. These type of NC zones and PUD zones that's where the creativity comes into the subdivision design process. And so I'm not sure how you feel about that. I'm just trying to bring it to your attention. I don't know if you want to eliminate it entirely, because then you end up just getting, set lot sizes and, the streets, and you don't get any of that creativity with attached housing typically, or, your open space, things like that. And since we're going to be bringing in larger properties, it probably is what people are going to be looking to do, is these larger subdivisions with, amenities and whatnot.
Well, yeah, because our existing residential code is all based on rectangular lots, because it's the old plot panel. So it has some creativity in it. But we do obviously have the PUD, but maybe instead of, in the master plan, maybe it should be a master plan PUD and not like NC zone, kind of. But I just want to definitely get away from the NC zone.
Do we have any PUDs?
Yeah.
Which one is
One.
Yeah.
No, we don't. No, I don't think we do that. I don't think we have one.
The toss.
Yeah.
No, I just said the code, sorry.
No, we definitely have a PUD in the code. Actually.
Yeah. I don't think we've ever had one.
And I think that's because of the NC.
Yeah, and our minimum, we just redid the minimum on it too.
Yeah, because it was 10, and then it dropped down to 4, and then it dropped, I think it maybe dropped down again. Yeah, because we got to the point where we didn't have any large parcels to do PUD. So why have it if you don't have the land for it?
Yeah, most jurisdictions, I think they require at least a 5-acre minimum to perform a PUD.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think ours was 4 still. Yeah. So any other discussion for the 2023 work plans? Anything else? What's that?
I'm sure as part of this process, we'll be looking at master plans, water, TSP, parks as well, all that stuff. So, yeah.
With the
Yeah.
UGB 100%, yeah, all that stuff kind of comes into play.
And all that should be in place here before anything comes in.
Yeah, I think one of the, as you get into this process, I really think the first thing you probably are going to want to do is look at your zoning map. Do we have everything where we want it, zone the way we want it? Because if you move some of those things around, say we take, there's a pocket maybe of light industrial, and we say, oh, why don't we turn that into high density? It's going to fit better with what's there right now. And so we'll give some more high density here, so we won't need some of that high density in the UGB expansion, because maybe we'll get 10 acres by the rezone. And then we'll move some of that light industrial, or, make it more industrial land with the UGB expansion, right? So you're kind of the shell game, we're gonna redo something here, so that might reduce what we have to do in the residential, but then we'll get the industrial over here now. And maybe try and get it in an area that's a little more compatible. So just things to look at, and then once you do that exercise, then that really helps you with the rest of the UGB expansion, because now you know what your needs are, acreage wise.
So to help us make that UGB expansion in the areas and stuff that we're gonna be looking at, do we need to know, or are we happy with our street widths and sidewalks and everything now? Because that may end up consuming more land around us. I think maybe that's something we want to look at now or beyond.
That is a good point. If you do change things like that, it will have an impact on the UGB expansion.
I mean, the standards, 3 standards are, that's in the public works and all that, right? I mean, they're no longer what we have. I mean, the old city is laid out with 60-foot right of way. So that's the standard for a street, but now we have standards that are a lot less than that. So, all that stuff is pretty much in place, I think. It's always going to look at it, but
In the CSP, yeah.
I know there's some developments where the widths are really narrow and stuff too, that I don't think we'd ever want to repeat
Well, I mean, that's something that, you know, like I said, it's always something for review.
It's just gonna depend if it's gonna be a neighborhood, and it's sort of a dense neighborhood, you have a local street, it'll be more narrow. I mean,
It's kind of like the fields developed. Right? Fields developments. You can't want to get down that street even.
Oh, that's-
And then you have people parking out on West Union, which county doesn't even really want you parking out there.
can't remember the county about that.
But I don't think we ever want to get in a situation like that again. That's so narrow, and there's no overspill to any other, you know, route.
Neighborhood.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a dead end.
And it's one.
Exactly. So and that's what I'm thinking about is situations like that where we're developing areas.
Well, some of those things too are, they're approved with no parking on one side or something, and then people are going ahead and parking, so I mean, that's an enforcement deal too.
Right.
Especially without an HOA,
So-
active HOA, there's nobody who really, I don't think we have an active HOA.
So how do we do better about that up front?
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I guess we'll see, our latest standards will be Brindle, for instance, and we'll see how those street widths look. That'll be the local street. And obviously the collector's a little bit wider than Imperial is, even wider than that, those are probably county roads, most likely though. We probably won't have a McKay Field situation, hopefully the newest TSP street standards are wider than that, so we'll helps that.
Is it gonna be too late by the time Green Hill really develops and then the UGB expansion comes in? And
Oh, no, I don't think so. No, we're still.
No.
Yeah, I take it back, if you did tweak the street right of ways or anything like that, it really won't have a major impact on the UGB, because typically what they're gonna do is they're gonna take out about, when you look at the land, they kind of factor in about 20 to 25%, unbuildable due to streets.
that percentage usually hit what the city has for defined for streets.
Yeah, and they'll go with streets, they'll go with stormwater, they'll go with, other public facilities that have to come in, so they're like, okay, we got all this land, take about 25% out, 20%, and then this is what's left over for.
All right, so if we're looking at a certain amount of rooftops or type of housing, then we could end up spilling a little more if our streets got bigger and stuff, right?
I don't think you would go for a bigger right of way in a residential street than 60 feet. That's pretty big already.
Or if we decide to put in a certain type of street down there, we have to plan for that.
And that'll probably happen, with the UGB expansion, we'll start, at least we'll factor in where the arterial streets will go, in some of these areas and collectors. But the residential streets obviously will come in, with the development. And so, we will factor in a little bit of that for the major streets, but not the local residential streets or, the streets that might come into like a big industrial complex or something.
What could potentially change, like the pavement widths might be the same, but one area that Brittenell did go over beyond is they make their sidewalks 8 feet wide. And we could start seeing more and more of that. I see that in newer developments all the time. Wider sidewalks. Yeah, cycle tracks and next to the sidewalk, that's getting more and more on it. Yeah.
But they didn't do interior.
Do I know?
They didn't do interior inside the subdivisions, just out on North Ave.
There, well, no, both sides of north are gonna be 8. I think
Right,
it
but
makes
that's
it right.
what we were required that.
Yeah,
They didn't want to do it. We made them do it.
That's true. That was wrong.
That wasn't their idea. I can guarantee you.
well. I'll defer to you on that. But you do, and maybe that's how every jurisdiction does it, because I see it in Laurelwood, I see it in South Hillsborough, I see it in Billabong, I see it in all these neighborhoods, you'll see these white
Well,
sidewalks.
Ontario and stuff, can we modify that code that says, well, you're gonna have 8-foot sidewalks each side?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't see why not.
And, some of that probably was negotiated through a PUD process or something like that for exactly the one over Villalobos over there. Is it Villalobos?
I know it's French, my
Oh,
friend.
wow, wow, okay. I don't know French, so. But I would imagine a lot of that was a little bit of back and forth with the city. on some sidewalk width, can you give us that? You give us these sidewalks, we'll give you a little bit more over here. I'm sure there was some negotiation that went on there. But yeah, just going over there recently, it's a pretty nice subdivision.
So then is the review of the zoning map something we want to look at in December then?
Maybe January. Or should we start doing that?
Now that you're on board, you won't see me at every meeting, so I think you should do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do that, we can invite.
I think it's a great idea.
Time for a work session too. Beforehand, if you want to do that.
So you
Just
think
a question.
we'll kind of January or
You know, like if he wants to come and have this
Do a
discussion,
workshop.
or work session?
Yeah, like-
full time?
6:30 or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I just want to reach out to Dave and
Yeah.
see what his schedule's like.
Councilor Kimball?
So you're talking all the street width, are you talking the city, what we're sitting in here right now? We're not talking about the urban growth boundary, what are we talking about?
We're talking new developments and stuff.
Yeah, inside the
The
urban
new
growth boundary,
UGB stuff,
the
basically.
new urban growth boundary.
Yeah.
I thought there was gonna be very little or any
No streets.
residential in there.
No, there's quite a bit of residential.
How much?
Who's residential?
How much you thinking?
There's a couple hundred.
98 out of the,
190?
Yeah, right.
How many?
180-ish
Oh.
acres of pure housing residential and throw in another 20 or 25%.
out of about the 600 acres, right?
Yeah, what's
I'm just,
what's Brainhill, that's 75 acres or so?
Yeah, 75.
73.5.
73?
73, okay. Sunset Ridge is 50.
okay, so just trying to,
A little bit more than what two of those
yeah,
combined.
you guys are having way too much fun.
You seem to spend more time with those books.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Get all the darn discussion, that'd be short meetings, you guys are doing all right. It's gonna be a 2-hour meeting.
Okay, so anything else that we want to?
Yeah, make sure you invite Butch to when we talk about sign code. Okay.
Yeah, okay. There you go.
Boy. Okay, if there's nothing else on that.
What I have right now is in December, for the December meeting, we'll take a deep dive into the zoning map and then see if there's anything that you guys like recommend to change on. And then we'll also probably before that have a little work session with Roll Tide on the signage in December.
6:30, you're
I think 6:30 would be
probably
okay
plenty of
for,
time.
we won't wait a whole hour.
No.
No, yeah,
Discussing sign.
so 6:30 should be sufficient.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 8, unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business?
So, right. That is the right answer.
Okay, item number 9 is the land use applications in the 3J report. If there was a 3J report.
I guess there's no more 3J report.
I saw.
Cross
They
that
give
one
it
out,
to
huh?
us for the second council meeting of the month, so it comes later in the month.
As far as planning goes, we're good. As we mentioned, we have a Taco Bell sign application that where there's no variance. So these are signs that are going to be wall mounted signs on the building. They're going to be some of the directional signs that help direct people to the driveway. They're going to be their food menu sign. So these signs are all signs that they have in for an application right now that do not require any type of variance, and they satisfy all of our signage requirements. So that's in right now, and that will probably go out here, maybe this week or probably Monday. We'll have that decision out the door for them. Because some of these things they need to start putting in right now because they require some conduit and stuff to energize them, like the menu sign.
So this number 5 from the bottom, 22-188 is sign variance. So they've already made an application.
Not for the sign variance, no.
Well, it says sign variance, type 3 variance permit.
Is that for that sign or is it someone else? Where is it?
Let's see.
The fifth one up from the bottom.
10185 North Blanco Road.
That could be a typo. The variance part. Oh, no, I've not seen the.
Typo all over the place, man. Because it says it's a type 3 typo.
I'll have to go back and double check that. I have not seen it. And he sent me an email earlier this week asking about the proposed location, if that would work.
Obviously, if there's an application already, then we can't workshop it.
Right, so let me look at that. And if that is the case, then we'll strike that from the work session in December, but I've not seen it. We also have the Brittenell Phase 4 final plat application. That's in right now for that phase. And the only other one we have right now is the appeal of your PC decision on the commercial space at the Brittenell.
They're appealing.
They have appealed. So those are the applications that are pending right now. And we will send you an email tomorrow to update you on that variance, that sign variance, and where that's at. But
So I have a question about this. I mean, what are they gonna take to council now? We have this thing that has happened a lot with whenever the city planning commission does something and it goes to council, council just approves.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm gonna be happy that night.
Hammer 'em. But sometimes I feel like they don't get all the information.
They don't, behind it, the novo. It's got all over. Now, I don't want you to take my thunder.
Go ahead. Des.
all I can say is they're just following the land use process.
Okay, so. Every one of the planning commissioners be aware that our decision is being appealed to the city council. So, my understanding is that it's what they call de novo, which means all the past information is gone. You start all over, you just present just the facts and apply the code. So my question is, number one is, does the PC have standing in this hearing?
You could attend and provide comment.
Do we have standing?
I mean, that's standing.
Okay. And then the second, of course,
And because it is de novo, it's a new hearing, whether you have standing or not.
well, I think you're supposed to have standing.
I would agree.
Then how do we present evidence that we had in our meeting, in our public meeting? How do we get that introduced?
What type of evidence are you talking about?
Well, we want to bring in evidence about, number one, our decisions, why we based it on. I want to bring in evidence on the options that we had in workshop that we agreed on, that the applicant agreed on. And then I want to also bring in information on the need for commercial space versus our economic opportunities analysis.
Some of that, it could be oral testimony. I'm not sure how much of it is in writing, like some of your past workshops or whatnot. You could submit the various recordings of your meetings as evidence.
A lot of that was master. Square footage of the.
Well, the minutes from last month I read the minutes because I wasn't there for the meeting and I understand all that stuff. So would be, seems like the city council should be reading that.
Right, and then what I would like to see is that every plan commissioner attend the appeal.
What's the date?
Well, I don't know yet,
Not said yet.
not set yet, so. Because
Huh?
I am tired of making decisions, especially for Brentwood, that get appealed and get overturned. I mean, we lost a median on North Avenue that we worked hard to put together a plan on, and all of a sudden, it ain't there. The last one was, over some width variances and stuff like that, the coverages. But it's just, I said this at the meeting. It doesn't matter what we decide, they're gonna appeal. And of course they appeal, even though the guy agreed to. So, if the city council does this again, I want to make sure that it goes back to the 5 years, because we gave him 2 years. We did him a favor, and I want to make sure that favor gets with
Do you remember, just if we go back with recordings, was it one of the work sessions over the summer that they agreed to that? Was it in a meeting?
Well, the thing is,
I wasn't at all.
I don't know if they're recorded, is the problem.
If it's a work session.
The work
we
session?
should record the
Okay.
ones, yeah.
Yeah,
Just there
well,
won't be minutes with it, but they're.
I'm sure
all
that
those
Heather
ones
might have
recorded.
better feel on it, but Heather,
There was
Ronde,
one or two workshops.
we had 3, I believe.
There was at least 2 or 3. over the
Yeah.
summer, yeah.
And because the first time is they came with the 47, then they came back with different options, because we told them we wanted more, we wanted 13,000 or something like that. And then they came back with a compromise in between, and there were 5 different options, I believe.
Yeah, they were wanting to build it out initially as apartment.
Yeah.
And then, that's
So we spent a lot of time on that, working with that particular applicant. Then to have to come in and just ignore everything we did, I thought was a slap in the face.
Well, if they go to city council and get approved every time, why wouldn't they try it?
Well, exactly, yeah, because they know that their history is they can do it.
Right.
I want to make sure that you do have standing, so let us verify that, and, when I email you tomorrow on the signage, I'll also give you an update on standing, but I have seen in my career, decisions get appealed at the planning commission level to the city council, and I've seen planning commissioners show up and testify in the past. So, I just want to, before I go too far and make a big leap and have you folks do a whole bunch of work, let me just confirm that with the legal counsel and Andy and everything, and make sure we're on the right, we're giving you the right information.
Yeah, because personally, if we make decisions and they get appealed and the city council goes along with the appeal, then the city council might as well be the planning commission. Because what the hell are we doing here? If they don't follow what we suggest.
Is that appeal always in place to the city council?
Yeah, and then any decision that the planning commission makes is appealable.
So I would, listen to this, I would like to all be here in person, because it just solidifies that, right? If they're there presenting their case, and for some reason we don't catch something, you guys are here to catch something, you have that opportunity. And so, I want to go along with what you guys do. That other one, I think, is that the one where they have the apartments facing north? Is that the one you were talking about? Okay, deal.
Well, they wanted, there was some
The
The
appeals
last one was
coverages
the
and,
size of the.
yeah, setbacks and the coverages.
Right.
I don't know if there was anything on that.
Yeah, I know it was coverage of it.
Yeah.
And that took away what we were working with them on was lower income housing.
Yeah,
And the
and
minute
they
we
wanted to make a 3-bedroom instead of 2-bedroom, so
Yeah.
then you get more money.
so and the minute they got the approval from council, then they blew it up and prices went up.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next day they put the new sign up for a higher price.
Yeah,
Exactly.
from 300 to 400.
Affordable housing.
Council's carrying all that.
I don't, I'm not,
Well, that's because they get this de novo here, and they get clean slate. They don't have to look at the stuff that happened before.
let's do that, solidify our findings at this council, at this level, and come to council. Let's solidify that.
I would just say, I think, part of this is going to be, because it's NC code. And you can go back and look at the master plan, development agreements, all that. There's no specific number of commercial space attached. It's always going to be open for interpretation.
Well, actually, that whole corner there is supposed to be commercial.
That's
Yeah,
right.
To apartments and then a small bit of commercial. And now they're trying to whittle away that commercial. That whole corner was commercial.
In the master plan,
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole lot was commercial.
We have been over way backwards.
A thought, if I may,
What's that?
so a thought, if I may. So why, at the council meetings, why not when we have these issues, why not one or two show up at the council meeting just to give us a synopsis of what's going on, so we're not just all of a sudden dead water. It's just a thought. I mean, consider it and see if it makes any sense. It's an extra time for a meeting for one night.
No,
I can always put you up front.
time is not an issue.
No, we could put you up front if that had to be, or near the front.
I did show up for the one on North Avenue.
The first day.
Yeah, and I testified, and then they continued it, and I didn't show up to the last one, and the city council was rolled over. So, okay, anything else on that? Okay, we'll move on to now planning commission comments. Item 10.
I think I've had fun.
So I'm just gonna suggest that every planning commissioner show up to the appeal. Is there any other planning commission comments? For staff or anything for city council?
If we don't show up, it's, we got us outnumbered. Good intimidation. Bring club, bring baseball, pass the net and see what happens.
Anyway, you got, Counselor Kendall, do you have anything for the plan?
Not much,
How was the meeting?
the beach is fine, it's sunny there today. I've been accused every time I go to the beach and visit my brother-in-law and sister that it rains, which it usually does. I forgot to call him tonight, tell him that I had a good day at the beach, so I think that's appropriate. Otherwise, things are good. All our officials got elected for another 3-4 years, I guess.
It was a tough break.
Tough race. We got to-
There were a
There
few
for a minute, I
write-ins.
thought the write-ins were gonna win.
Yeah. 10, 11 of them.
I thought there was 29.
And,
There
let's
were
see,
one
oh,
that- Yeah, it was a different number for each one.
I know, and I think maybe you have to help me here, but the mayor, you know, she's head of this whole mayor's association in Oregon. She said that we're now going to get money from the state, all the cities, for this homeless issues. So if we don't have any spot for build a facility and get money to fill that, why we are obligated and can donate that money to other cities that have these building sites, and we can donate the money that way. So that's a good thing. So that's one, there was some latest things coming out. Just who would give it to, that could be a decision. Anyway, cardboard?
Yeah, you got a cardboard.
Okay.
What's yours?
Nothing
Bread and
else
batter?
on-
Breakfast,
Yeah.
Nothing else on that?
nothing else.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 11, staff comments.
Nothing new at this time. We kind of went over them already.
You're good? Okay, so if there's no other commission business, our next meeting will be December 14th here. And potentially with a workshop at 6:30, but we'll be notified.
Yes. So look for an email tomorrow.
Nothing else? We're adjourned at 7:59.